You probably clicked this video because something about your family has never felt right. Maybe you spent years making excuses for them, absorbing their pain, trying to be the perfect child who could finally earn their approval. Carl Jung discovered something that will change how you see your entire childhood. The family that raised you might have been your first narcissist's trap. Jung documented a disturbing pattern across his clinical work. Empaths who struggled with toxic relationships in adulthood almost always traced their wounds back to one source. Not a romantic partner, not a friend, their original family system. The people who were supposed to protect them had instead trained them to ignore their own reality and serve everyone else's emotional needs. Here's what makes this discovery so devastating. You didn't just learn bad habits. Your family programmed your entire psychological operating system to accept abuse as love, neglect as normal, and your own perceptions as wrong. Jung called this the family shadow, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how this trap works, why empaths fall into it, and most importantly, how recognizing it becomes your path to freedom. Let's start with what Jung called the family persona. Every family has an agreed-upon mask they show the world. The perfect family, the successful family, the religious family, the fun family, whatever the public image, there's always a shadow underneath. Unacknowledged rage, hidden addictions, denied cruelty, suppressed dysfunction. Here's where it gets disturbing for empaths. Someone in the family system has to carry that shadow. Someone has to absorb all the darkness that the family refuses to acknowledge about itself. And if you're watching this video, that someone was probably you. Jung observed this pattern so consistently in his practice that he developed a term for it: the family scapegoat. But here's what most people misunderstand about scapegoating. It's not just about blame, it's about psychological projection on a massive scale. The narcissistic or unconscious parent cannot tolerate their own capacity for cruelty, so they project it onto you. They cannot accept their own incompetence, so they see you as the problem. They cannot face their own malice, so they accuse you of being difficult, too sensitive, or intentionally hurtful. This is the first layer of the trap. You spend your childhood carrying qualities that don't belong to you, feeling fundamentally flawed for crimes you never committed. But it gets worse. The most dangerous conditioning happens through what Jung called shadow projection in the family. Let me paint you a picture of how this actually works in real life. Imagine a parent who cannot tolerate knowing they are cruel. Their unconscious mind must protect them from this truth, so it finds a target: you. Suddenly, every interaction gets filtered through this projection. When you set a boundary, you're being cruel. When you express a need, you're being selfish. When you defend yourself, you're attacking them. The parent genuinely believes their distorted perception because their brain has rewritten reality to protect their self-image. And here's the truly insidious part. They're so convinced of their projection that they can recruit other family members to see you the same way. Jung called this collective possession. One person's unconscious projection infects the entire family system like a psychological virus. Your siblings start treating you differently. Extended family members give you strange looks at gatherings. Everyone seems to have received the same memo about your character, except you never got to read what it said. This creates what Jung termed a reality distortion field inside your own home. You're living in a house where up is down, black is white, and your actual personality has been replaced by a fictional character that everyone else can see but you. The empath's nervous system is particularly vulnerable to this because you can sense the emotional truth underneath people's words. You feel your parents' rage even when they're smiling. You detect their manipulation even when they're playing victim. You know something is deeply wrong. But every time you try to name it, you get gaslit. That's not happening. You're imagining things. You're too sensitive. Something's wrong with you. This brings us to Jung's concept of the perfect person problem. To survive in this toxic family system, the empath makes a devastating choice. They decide to become so perfect that they can finally earn the love that should have been unconditional. They abandon their authentic self and construct an elaborate persona designed to meet every family need and expectation. You become the good child, the helper, the caretaker, the emotional shock absorber, the one who never complains, never has needs, never causes problems. You learn to read every micro-expression, anticipate every mood shift, manage every family crisis. Your entire identity dissolves into a role designed to maintain family stability. Here's what Jung understood that makes this so tragic. You didn't lose your authentic self because you were weak. You lost it because you were strong. Your empathic abilities made you the perfect candidate for this role. Your sensitivity allowed you to detect and respond to family dysfunction before it exploded. Your capacity for love made you willing to sacrifice yourself to keep everyone else comfortable. The family system unconsciously selected you for this position because you were capable of bearing what no one else could carry. But there's a cost to playing this role. Jung documented it clearly in his clinical work. When you completely identify with your family persona, you lose contact with your own inner reality. You stop knowing what you actually feel, want, or need. You become so skilled at absorbing everyone else's emotions that you cannot distinguish your own psychological content from what you've picked up from others. Your boundaries dissolve. Your identity fragments. You become a psychological satellite orbiting your family's needs while your own soul starves in the darkness. Now let's talk about the compulsion to repeat, because this is where the family trap extends into your adult life. Jung observed something that should terrify every empath still caught in this pattern. The family system trains you so thoroughly to normalize abuse and see yourself as the problem that you unconsciously recreate the same dynamics in every adult relationship. You choose romantic partners who treat you like your parents did. You find friends who take advantage of your giving nature. You end up in workplaces with narcissistic bosses who exploit your competence while denying you recognition. It's not bad luck. It's not coincidence. It's your unconscious mind seeking out familiar relationship patterns because familiarity feels like home, even when home was toxic. The trap reveals its full horror here. Your family didn't just damage you in the past, they programmed your psychological GPS to keep leading you back to the same destination. You become an adult who unconsciously broadcasts a signal that attracts exactly the wrong people. Narcissists can smell an unhealed family scapegoat from across a room. They recognize someone who has been trained to doubt their own perceptions, absorb blame, and prioritize others' needs above their own. You're not attracting these people because something is wrong with you. You're attracting them because your family prepared you to be the perfect victim. But here's where Jung's work becomes genuinely hopeful. This is not a life sentence. There is a moment that changes everything. Jung called it the clarity event, the realization that the family was the template for all subsequent trauma. And once you see it, the trap begins to lose its power. The clarity event usually comes through betrayal, one final incident where the family's treatment of you becomes so undeniable that your empathic perception overwhelms your trained response to make excuses for them. Maybe you set a boundary and they rage at you for being selfish. Maybe you achieve something significant and they diminish it. Maybe you finally tell them how they hurt you and they turn themselves into the victim of your honesty. Whatever the trigger, something inside you switches. For the first time in your life, you trust what you feel more than what you've been told to feel. You see the narcissistic parent clearly instead of through the fog of their projections. You recognize the enabling parent who sacrificed you to keep the peace. You understand the sibling who joined the scapegoating to protect themselves. You perceive the entire family system as it actually is, not as you desperately needed it to be. Jung documented this moment across his clinical cases. He called it terrifying because it requires you to grieve the family you thought you had while accepting the family you actually got. You have to acknowledge that the people who should have loved you most instead used you most, that your childhood was not preparation for life, but training for exploitation, that everything you believed about yourself being the problem was a lie designed to protect people who refused to face their own darkness. This realization does not feel like relief. It feels like death. The death of hope that they will change, the death of the belief that you can fix them if you just try hard enough. The death of the fantasy that perfect behavior will finally earn you the love you deserved all along. But as Jung understood, some things have to die so that truer things can be born. Here's where the internal conflict reaches its peak. You're standing at a psychological crossroads that will define the rest of your life. On one side is the familiar path. Stay unconsciously attached to the toxic family system. Keep playing your role. Continue absorbing their projections. Maintain the hope that somehow, someday, they will see you and value you. This path feels safer because it's known, but it guarantees a life of psychological imprisonment. On the other side is the path Jung called individuation, confronting the family shadow, choosing to see the truth even when the truth is devastating, accepting that the family cannot or will not change, and making the terrifying decision to become sovereign over your own psychological reality, regardless of whether your family approves. This choice comes with a cost that empaths feel more acutely than anyone else: psychological isolation, when you refuse to carry the family shadow anymore, when you stop absorbing projections, when you name the dysfunction that everyone else agrees to ignore, you become a threat to the entire system. The family will likely intensify their scapegoating to pull you back into line. They may rage at you, play victim, recruit others against you, or worst of all, completely withdraw their presence from your life. Jung understood that the empath who chooses individuation must become what he called an island of awareness in an ocean of unconsciousness. You see what your family refuses to see. You know what they cannot bear to know, and that knowledge separates you from the collective illusion that holds them together. This is the price of freedom. You may have to walk this path alone, at least for a while, until you find other people capable of seeing clearly. But here's what makes this path worth taking: shadow integration. When you stop carrying your family's darkness and start integrating your own, something extraordinary happens. You reclaim the parts of yourself that were sacrificed to maintain the family persona. Your anger, which you were never allowed to feel. Your strength, which threatened people who needed you weak. Your boundaries, which disrupted the system that required your porousness. Your right to be wrong, imperfect, and human without being punished for it. The integrated empath is what Jung believed empaths were always meant to become. Someone with the sensitivity to feel everything, but the wisdom to choose consciously where that sensitivity flows. Someone who can be compassionate without being a doormat. Someone who can love deeply without losing themselves. Someone who uses their empathic gifts in service of people who deserve them, rather than wasting them on family members who exploit them. This is not about becoming cold or cutting everyone off, though sometimes distance is exactly what health requires. This is about becoming selectively empathetic. You maintain your capacity for deep feeling and connection, but you protect it fiercely. You no longer give unlimited access to people who have proven they will abuse that access. You stop setting yourself on fire to keep your family warm. You become what Jung called psychologically untouchable, not because you built walls, but because you built standards. And here's the beautiful paradox Jung observed in his integrated patients. When you stop seeking approval from family members who were never going to give it, You become genuinely free to build the family you actually need. Found family, chosen family, people who see your authentic self and love that person, not the perfectly accommodating persona you performed for survival. Your integration forces the toxic system to evolve or collapse, and either outcome liberates you. The family that raised you may have been your first narcissist's trap. They may have trained you to doubt your perceptions, carry their shadow, and sacrifice your authentic self to maintain their comfortable illusions. But now you see it, and seeing it means you can choose differently. You can reclaim your empathic gifts and use them consciously instead of compulsively. You can build boundaries that honor your reality instead of everyone else's denial. Jung spent his career documenting one essential truth: the wound is where the light enters. Your family may have wounded you, but that wound also gave you a superior perception that most people never develop. You can see through facades. You can sense unconscious motivations. You can detect dysfunction before it destroys you. These are not weaknesses. These are psychological superpowers that you earned through suffering. The question is no longer why your family treated you this way. The question is what you will do with the awareness that they did. Will you stay trapped in the old pattern, endlessly hoping they will change? Or will you honor what you now know and use it to build a life where your empathic nature is cherished instead of exploited? Jung would tell you that your liberation begins the moment you trust your own perception more than your family's projection. If you recognized yourself in this description of the family trap, drop a comment below sharing which Jungian concept hit you hardest. Your journey toward integration matters, and sometimes naming what happened is the first step toward freedom. Subscribe for more deep dives into Jung's psychology and how it applies to empaths navigating a world that wasn't built for people who feel everything. In The Alchemist's Path, perception training for empaths, you'll turn overwhelm into wisdom with practical drills, Jung-inspired boundaries, and step-by-step perception training. This guide includes 3 exclusive chapter videos to deepen each lesson. Written by Surreal Mind, 236 pages, beautifully designed 8.5 by 11 downloadable ebook, in stock now. Start your training today. Feel deeply while thinking clearly. Get The Alchemist's Path at thesurrealmind.com. Thanks for watching. See you in the next dimension.